Parents would probably like it if I had the vaccine so that, it wouldn't cause COVID to happen to anybody around me. And so that's why I went ahead and had the first two vaccines. Started getting muscle problems in my hands, and my muscles have wasted away. So it's starting to wreak havoc into my, like my hands and stuff.
If you could go back, would you choose to get the vaccine again?
Your organization has achieved a significant dent in vaccine mandates.
We didn't do the science. We didn't do the clinical trials. We didn't do the flow safety. But one thing we know it's rare.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Shot Callers. My name is Cherie Beuse, and I am the Outreach Director of Texans for Vaccine Choice. And today we have a very special guest. All of us now have been connected to someone whose lives have been affected by the COVID vaccine. Today we have a guest, Cherie Beuse, who was one of those people who were unfortunately injured after her COVID-19 vaccines. And Cherie has graciously offered to share her story of what has happened after her initial vaccines were given. And Cherie does have some photophobia, so her lighting is going to be a little bit dark, and she may have to wear some glasses to help protect her eyesight at some point during the show. So if you see that, don't be alarmed. That is just part of her injury story, and it's a condition called photophobia, and one of many things that we'll discuss today with Cherie. Without further ado, I want to welcome Cherie Beuse, my wonderful friend, and thank her so very much for being willing to share with us today on Shot Callers. Thanks for coming, Cherie.
Thank you, Carrie, for having me on and letting me share my story. Thank you.
It's important. So tell me, what was your life like prior to receiving the COVID-19 vaccine, and what kind of prompted you to be wanting to take it?
Okay, yes. I was teaching swimming to small children and sometimes adults, and I had my own little business going on, and I realized that the parents would probably like it if I had the vaccine so that, I wouldn't harm their children or, wouldn't cause COVID to happen to anybody around me. And so that's why I went ahead and had the first two vaccines, but shots. So anyway, so I was busy doing lots of other things. Yes, I was actually the state coordinator for Moms in Prayer at that time. It's Moms that Pray for the Kids in the schools. And I had been doing that for almost 8 years at that time. But then it was just really getting hard to continue to do it. So I had to end up giving that up after. But I was very busy, very busy. Yeah.
So you had a busy, normal life and you owned your own business. Did you face shutdowns in your city where you were living? And was a vaccine a pathway to normalcy for you? Was that part of it?
Yes. Unfortunately, lots of my friends, which I wasn't interfacing with them as much as you normal, because when we were together and stuff, not because we were, doing that, being not, what was it called anyway? Being in place or something. I forgot what.
Oh, yeah. Sheltering in place.
So I wasn't seeing any people. So, most of my friends, a lot of my friends did not get the vaccines. And I don't know where I was when I wasn't listening to them. I was listening to my sisters and my mother who were saying, oh, we're getting the vaccines and all that. And living in a remote area, I mean, I don't know why. I didn't think that I was maybe even going to get it, but it just sounded so heavy and all that, I just felt like I should do it. So,
I understand. The pressure to comply with that request to get vaccinated was extremely strong. The strongest we've ever seen in the history of forever. And you were one of billions of people who decided to get it. So your first shot was in February of 2021, correct?
Right. Yes. And
did you get the Moderna or the Pfizer?
I got the Moderna. Yeah.
And how did you do after that first dose?
After the first dose, I started having this wave of headache come through, and it would just kind of go in my head and then just kind of dissipate out. And I'd never been one to have headaches, so I went, it was just like, wow, that's kind of strange, but I wasn't even contributing to the vaccine. because at the time we had lost our truck we live where it snows, and we had a wind and snowstorm, and the trunk of the tree came down right on our truck. And so I was dealing with insurance and stuff at the time. So I could have been thinking, well, it's just stress too.
Right. That's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you didn't notice anything severe after the first, other than the waves of headache. And then you got your second dose in March of 2021. And how did that go?
Well, after that, I mean, I would take a walk and I'd start to feel this. Yeah, I couldn't figure out why the sun seemed so bright to me, and my headaches were a lot worse, and all of a sudden it occurred to me I'm experiencing migraines, and I'd never ever experienced one before, but I'd heard about it through my friends. I wasn't having the dizziness or the nausea, but it's just horrible. You know, I'd go to bed at night and there'd just be lights and stuff going on. It was like I'd never taken drugs, but it sounded like having a drug experience or something, being on a high.
So it definitely affected your cognitive awareness.
Yeah. It was very horrible. I would wake up in the night just to go to the bathroom, and I'd realize I'm having headaches in the night. What is this? Why would I have headaches in the night? At first, when I went to the doctor, they said, "Oh, you're just on the screen too much. You know, your computer too much." And then I said, "Wait a minute. I get these in the night, and I'm not on the screen during the night." So
right,
yeah.
So when you first brought the headaches up to the doctor, they tried to minimize and suggest just screen time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Did you ask about the vaccine being a part of it, or was that not yet in your mind?
At the time, yeah, when I went to the doctor at first, I think I'd reached out to like nurses on, through our insurance, just to talk to them on the phone.
Like a nurse helpline?
Yeah, nurse helpline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I called that for a while, trying to figure this out and stuff, and have them help me. And so then I finally realized, no, I need to go to my primary care. And she didn't want to believe me. And then one time I went in, and she had been away, called away, and so I saw another PA, and he said that, oh yeah, it is the vaccine. And he says, but by the time you get a referral for the neurologist here, and near where I live, and by that time it's going to have gone away. And but it never did. And the other thing he said to me was that I forgot. It went out of my mind. That happens a lot to me. Things just go out of my mind. If I think I'll tell you.
Okay, so I remember you going into the doctor, and the second one noticed. Is that when you filed your VAERS report? Because I know that you filed in May of 2021.
I think I'd actually even filed before that. Yeah, because I realized, yeah. So what
made you realize it might have been the shot? Was it just like an instinct, or had you read something or seen something?
Well, because it just was so overwhelmingly different. My life just totally changed, And
your body didn't feel the same.
And so it's like, I just knew it had to have been that. And I actually called, or I got in touch with our news station in Sacramento, and it's about 2 hours away from where I live. And because I lived where it's rural, I wasn't being able to talk to anybody else. Hey, are you experiencing something from the vaccine, or And so I called, because they had this, like, they'd help when, I forget what it's called, their program, but they would look into things. They would research things.
Like those investigative hotlines?
Yeah. And so she was interested in knowing how I did. And so once I did see the neurologist, she asked me if I had a CT scan, and I said I was planning on getting one. And she says, call me after and let me know if it's a tumor or something. And so I called her after. I says, no, there's no tumor. And she said she would start asking some of the other people in this investigative group if they were hearing from others that that other people were having vaccine stuff. And because I thought, well, if I reach out to them, they're in a bigger place and they're going to have heard more. But, the news people, they were just not wanting to hear it. And she never was a help to me. And they even did a whole segment on long COVID. But, so they were definitely helping with, getting that word out about people with long COVID. And that's what that doctor had said to me. That's right. I've just remembered. He said, what you're experiencing is this like long hauler COVID stuff. That other people that have had COVID, sometimes they get the same that symptoms of this long haul stuff, and that's what you're experiencing. That was the thing that he told me at the time.
And that was 4 years ago.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Over 4 years.
2021, May of 2021.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So I know that when you reported to VAERS, it took them 4 years to get you a permanent VAERS number.
Yeah.
And then at the same time you filed for VAERS, you filed for the CICP.
Yes.
So for those of you watching who don't know, as a vaccine recipient in the United States of America, you, the vaccine recipient, are the sole guarantor of all legal, financial, and physical risk that is inherent in the vaccination process. So Cherie took a COVID vaccine that was considered covered under the PrEP Act of 2005, which gave total indemnity and protection to the manufacturers, administrators, and hospital systems, all a part of the EUA, Emergency Use Authorization products, of which the COVID-19 vaccines were one, along with Paxlovid, Remdesivir, and the masks, to name a few others. But when you are injured with a countermeasures EUA authorized program, as the COVID-19 vaccines were, you are beholden to go through a special master out-of-court government-funded program called the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program. And you have 1 year from the time of receipt of the vaccine to file your injury claim with the CICP. So Cherie got injured in March is when she noticed. She filed in May of the same year, so she definitely fit that 1 year criteria. And Cherie has been involved with the CICP for 4 years now. Mm-hmm. Can you give me an update, Cherie?
Yes, I haven't heard anything. I appealed it, and then they did send me a letter saying that it's in the review process, but I still haven't heard anything.
So when you say you appealed it, is that because they denied your claim first, and so you're appealing the denial?
Yes, and they're very thorough because they get all the notes from the doctor and stuff like that, but they never mentioned the photophobia, and that's been the worst part. I mean, like these glasses when I go outside are my best. I call them my best friend. I can't be without them when I go out in the light. It's just so bright and hard, and yeah. And
when you say that the CICP special masters are being very thorough, yeah, do you mean they're being very thorough to help you find compensation and relief for your injuries? Or do you mean they're being very thorough at trying to deny blame?
They're very picky about whatever, they write all this stuff and they're, as your doctor said, you're having headaches, but, they just try to tone it all down. They just try to tone it all down. That, yes, we've already heard all that, but they never mention the photophobia in any of it. So that's when the appeal, I documented everything. I documented just where I had fault with them, where they hadn't looked into things. And, like I called, the CDC at times, they'd tell me like and Moderna, when I called Moderna, they said, yeah, they had the injury compensation in place for so far as compensating. And then they had the clinical immunization safety assessment team. And most people don't know about that. What it is, it's 7 teaching hospitals across the United States. And they have certain people that will help your physician in how to treat you. So I had to go through those steps, and I learned about this the only way I learned about it is because I got a medical friend to be on the phone with Moderna. They wouldn't Moderna not tell me.
So Moderna wouldn't talk to you without
No.
a medical professional being on the phone?
Nope.
So you had to get your friend to volunteer to serve as your representative.
Right. And at that time, I had known about the clinical immunization safety assessment team anyway, so I was in the process, but it took forever to try to figure out how to connect with them. It's not easy. So when I did finally connect with them, and they did have a phone conversation with my physician, they were no help to her and no help to me, because they said that there are not enough people that are experiencing headaches from the vaccine. So he wasn't willing to have to help. And, and like 4 years later, I'd kind of like to go back and ask them, okay, it's been 4 years now. And, what are you doing for people? I even called somebody that I talked to before, who's with a woman who's a doctor, and she takes the calls and stuff. But it's just, she would tell me that all they want to tell you is if you should take another vaccine or not. Like, what? They don't help you with trying to treat it? I don't get it. It's just...
So it sounds like they've narrowly focused at the CICP on only your headaches and ignored your other symptoms.
Yeah.
And it also sounds like they're looking for any reason to blame anything but the vaccine. Yeah. And that they have not offered a viable treatment path for you.
Yep. And I went through, I reached out to UCSF, Stanford, and I was already seeing a neurologist at Davis because I wanted to get into their long COVID clinic to help with the fatigue, because the fatigue is just horrible. I mean, still have fatigue. And so they told me because my lungs were fine, that they didn't want to treat me at Davis or be in the long COVID clinic. UCSF, there was a waiting list. And then when they finally did say, opened it up to me, when they found out it was vaccine related, I couldn't go to their COVID clinic. So I went through Sutter eventually. Sutter was impacted like 2 years into this, and finally, 4 years, and they were able to see me. But it's just been really...
It sounds like you have really, really struggled to find medical care that can help you. And it sounds like you waited 4 years for an opening at a COVID clinic.
Yeah. And I've seen 18 different medical, besides acupuncture or two, or
18 different medical providers.
Yeah. So far,
have any of them found a care path that's working well for you? Like, how are you helping to take care of you now?
I know. There's two things. I've had a sore in my nose for like 2.5 months, and I couldn't figure out what's going on. So I finally got into an ENT. And, I've got an infection in there. And I told him that there's a procedure in Japan that they do where they go back in with zinc and a long, back in your nose, and they clean it out. They've been finding that with long COVID people that's helpful. So he says, I've never heard of it. So, you've given me some homework to look into, seeing if it can help me that way. But anyway, he did say, yes, you've got an infection in there. So there could be stuff going on way back in there that, until he helps me more, I won't know. So he was probably my 19th medical person I saw just recently.
That sounds a lot like you're trying to solve your own health puzzle.
Exactly, Carrie. Exactly. I listened to, like,
you're trying to solve your own
I was
puzzle.
telling,
while you're sick.
That Vax Safety, I was telling you about how I listened to a podcast.
The Vaccine Safety and Research Foundation?
Yes. And they had 2 different medical doctors talking about like how they're trying to get rid of the spike protein and, inside, and the protocols for that, and the spike assays and all these blood tests and all this work and stuff. But they want you to come back, like I'd have to fly to Alabama and see one of their doctors, and, it's just incredible. So I'm reaching out to them and hoping I hear back that if there's somebody here in California that I could go to. And one of them said, okay, you're going to go to your neurologist and they're going to tell you, oh, we have this, because this was specific for brain injuries. This was specific to this podcast thing. And so, you're going to go to your neurologist and they're going to offer you a neurostimulator. And so they do is they put, something into your back of your head, and I think somewhere else, and I could go for this trial thing to see if it, would help. But he says that's not going to solve. That's just going to mask the issue. And I went, oh my gosh, because that's what happened to me just this past week. I went to my neurologist for my Botox injections, and she said, oh, we have this neurostimulator I can offer you. And I'm like, oh. So I need to.
Are they doing the Botox for the headaches?
Yes. Botox. I inject myself once a month with medication for the headaches. I take herbal, and I take propanolol. I take all these medications.
How many medications would you say you're on?
I'm actually on 10 medications now.
10
and
medications.
I was on.
Were you on medications before?
I was on gabapentin for leg pain. Yeah.
So one.
Yeah. And I was on a antidepressant that was supposed to help with the nerve pain as well. And they put me back on that. Right. I had just tried to get off of it. And because all this stuff does stuff to you. I was having ulcers.
All the side effects. Yeah.
Crazy. It's crazy. So anyway.
So you've had to direct your own health and try and solve your own health puzzle.
Yeah.
Who's been helping you financially? Has your insurance company been helping? Has the government provided you any funds to help recover yourself?
No.
How have you been financing this?
And one of the medications my insurance won't pay for, so I have to pay for it out of pocket. It's a compounding pharmacy. This one for the fatigue, low dose naltrexone. So, and that's what they're putting a lot of the long COVID people, on. So
yeah.
So, yeah.
Has your medical care been expensive, or has it been affordable to go through this journey?
I'm fortunate that I do have Medicare and we pay premium for another insurance. So, yeah, between those two, they do pay for everything. There was one time when I went for that special blood test that through Incel, through Bruce Patterson. And I had to get the blood drawn and then send it off to them. And I had to, try to get my insurance to pay for it. And, and then I had to see someone special, like through Zoom, after to tell me what to do. And Medicare wasn't going to pay for part of it, but then I had to, so I kept appealing it, and that wasn't easy. I mean, it was just caused more headache, caused a lot more pain at the time, and emotionally draining. And so anyway, and I thought I could quit, but I really felt like I need to press on with this. This is not fair. And so they did get me an administrative law judge that I, had to meet over the phone with, and she aggregated the claims together, and so that I could get a good compensation back. So, but had I not had that step taken,
so it sounds like this journey has fundamentally changed the way that your life operates.
Completely.
And it sounds like you've had to become an expert advocate and even involve legal professionals to try and get your care covered by your insurance company so that you can afford to get treatment. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's hard because my family wasn't on board with it at the beginning. They were.
What does that mean? They weren't on board with it? What weren't they on board with?
Well, thinking that they thought it was just in my head, or you know what I mean. That
they thought you were being dramatic.
Yeah. and now they're finally realizing. It's like I went to a concert at that my niece put on, and my sister, she realized that the lighting was just really giving me headaches, and so she said, just let's go up, let's move up closer, let's get under where we're not, you're not going to be bothered. And I thought that was really sweet of her. She finally has come along. And
how long did it take your family to come along and recognize your injuries were legitimate?
Slowly, some of them would come on board more than the others, so.
Are there still some who doubt your injury?
There's one that says, well, they needed, really needed that people to take the vaccines because people were dying from COVID. So, you're just a casualty in this, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know how I feel when I hear those conversation pieces out in the wild, but how do you feel hearing it from someone that you care about?
It's very, very hard. Very hard. Yeah. In fact, I came up with a word for it. I just don't feel like I'm being listened to. It's like they're just trying to tune me out or, to deny it. And I realize that I just need to they're not a safe person for me. And,
right.
And that's really hard when it's somebody you're really close to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. It's very painful when someone that you love can't acknowledge what has happened and is being callous and disregarding your experience.
Yeah.
Because this has forever changed your life, right? How
Yeah.
How is your swim business going? Have you been able to keep it up?
I had to give it up. The pool just sits there.
Because of your injuries, you weren't able to be outside with
because
the kids.
Before, I built the pool just for my own. I used to work in physical therapy, and I knew how important it was with the back problem to be able to work out in a pool. And so, where was I going with that? But I can't afford to heat it up. And when I was teaching, I could have, it was cost effective because I heated up for the little kids, and then I could work out in it after I was finished teaching. But now I don't even work out in it myself. Yeah.
And I recall with the fatigue that it was just hard for you to get through those days because I know that it's just so different now than it used to be.
Yeah.
So tell me about like an average day now, and how does that contrast to what your capacity and functionality was before, just to help us more fully understand the differences.
Mm-hmm. Well, I never ever took naps before, and I've taken naps. And to tell you the truth, when I drive, because of all the medications and stuff, I get kind of tired and it's scary. It's very scary. But yet I want to keep driving. So, and let's see.
Are you able to still walk around outside? I know you live rural and you love to be outdoors.
I've always taken walks. I was a real strong person, and that's maybe been helpful to me. I do stretches every morning. Oh yeah. It takes me an hour because what happened is I started getting muscle problems in my hands, and they supposedly my physical therapist said because I lost so much weight because I was trying to be on I am on an anti-inflammatory diet. So she says my muscles have wasted away. So it's starting to wreak havoc into my, like my hands and stuff are. So I had a lot of pain and lately because I'm doing the exercises and stuff, I'm getting a little better. They did an epidural in my neck because they thought, well, maybe the headaches are coming from the neck. Because
so they did an epidural in your neck. So when I hear epidural, I think the level of pain relief that blocks childbirth. Is that that's what they gave you?
Yeah, they do that in the spine. Yeah, in your spine to help take down the inflammation in that area.
So your headaches and inflammation was so bad that the recommended course of treatment was a spinal block epidural.
Yeah. And so during
goodness.
Yeah, I was face down flat, and the headaches, I got up to a 10. It was horrible. I'm like, come on, lady.
I'm so sorry.
Just shoot me with that needle. I'm not scared of needles, but it was just like, get this over with. And then after the photophobia was just more, worse. My headaches were worse. I'm going,
So
no,
it made it worse. It didn't help.
it made it worse. They thought it might, show that the headaches were coming from my neck, but no, it made it worse. So, and yeah, and the, for 3 nights, the aura and, the light stuff in the middle of the night was horrible. It was just bad.
I'm so sorry that treatment didn't help.
Yeah.
Have you been able to find anything that really helps?
Well, I'm trying all this stuff to try to get rid of the spike protein, and I just need to find a good doctor here in California, that's going to help me with doing some, really look at my blood work well and stuff like that. Oh, I am in the Recover study through the NIH. They took me into the study because
what is? Can you let us know what the Recover study is? I know it's a National Institutes of Health initiative.
Yes, and so they're monitoring people that have had COVID and just seeing supposedly they're seeing where it's going to go in your body because they're trying to track it. So they do. So
when you say people who had COVID, do you mean people who had COVID infections or people who got the COVID vaccine or both?
People that had COVID infections. And so the only reason why I got into the program is because when I was researching neurologists, I went on the Stanford website because they kept saying, this certain neurologist that I was supposed to have this visit with, I kept calling and there was nobody, I was on the waiting list and they kept saying, well, why don't you just switch and go to another neurologist? And so I went on the website just to research their neurologists and I saw where they were having a study. So I called and somebody got back to me and said, we'll take you in the study because I was having all these same kind of symptoms.
Did you have COVID or did you only get the vaccine?
No, I don't believe I ever had COVID. And so my husband got.
But they were willing to accept you because your symptomatology was very similar to those who had like long haulers COVID.
Yep. And when I was on the phone with the woman, I said something about how my husband had COVID, but I hadn't got it from him. And she says, oh, well, would he be in the study too? Because, he'd had the COVID. So we both are in the study. But all they do is they are doing testing all the time of us, but they won't do any kind of treatment.
Do you know what they're testing?
They're not doing any kind of treatment. Well,
so they're just an observational study to learn more.
And you answer all these questions every 3 months, every 4 months, something like that. And then based on how you answer those, they have you do certain testing. And recently I did the NIH cognitive testing, and it was horrible. It was super hard, and I'm sure I just didn't do very well at all.
Is that testing because I know you have a lot of cognitive,
but they
kind of difficulties.
Yeah, but they also made it hard too. The test, I don't think I think it would be hard for even a person that had was very cognitive. I don't know why they made it so hard or why,
I don't know. So the purpose of the Recover study is just an observational goal to kind of learn more about people who have this group of symptoms, but there's no expectation of exploratory treatment, right?
No. I've asked them and they've just said no. But lately I know that they have included me more in. They've never come out about the vaccine, but just the whole long COVID stuff. They're asking more questions.
So they're still treating you like a long COVID patient, even though you never actually had COVID.
Yes. Okay.
And they're trying to figure out how to resolve like perhaps a lingering spike issue in people who got the infection, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I can tell you one interesting story. I kept calling Moderna, to try to, well, what are you doing? Are you doing anything more or are you going to help us anymore? One time I called and the guy says, look, lady, you need to just stop calling and you need to learn to meditate. And it's like, what? How, to presume that was just horrible.
I want to recap that. because it's unbelievable. You were pursuing Moderna and had to go up a chain of command to get a hold of someone in the first place, correct? And when you finally did, their response was to tell you to meditate.
Well, I called in, I guess, one too many times. That's what he was trying to say. Look, lady, you need to stop calling. And
so they wanted you to just go away.
Yeah. And I actually did. I haven't called him since, but I felt like I should call back and say, hey, this was not a way to treat somebody. How does he know? How does he presume that I'm not someone that prays or someone that really, I'm just,
regardless.
Yes. Yeah.
His job was to do surveillance for safety. That was the entire purpose of that department that you called, was to surveil the safety and to look for safety signals in the same way that the observational study is looking for signals from that population of people with similar symptomatology. Their whole job was to look for safety signals from people like you that it sounds like, didn't want to talk to at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you could go back, would you choose to get the vaccine again?
No. I think it was really horrible. Like with poor Brianne Dressen, that was in the trial, and, she got so hurt. And, why didn't they say, hey, wait a minute, this trial, the people on the trial are not doing too good. We shouldn't roll this out to everybody, It was wrong.
Are you aware that for the Pfizer trials, the government had to be sued twice in order to release the clinical trial data and the first 3 months of data after the rollout, and that Moderna has actually not yet released their raw clinical trial data?
Oh, that's horrible.
Like, how does that make you feel in terms of, I guess, contrasted against the narrative we were all told during the peak of the pandemic times, that it was safe and effective and there were no problems and it would 95% efficacy?
Yeah, it hurts. It hurts that our government, the United States, is not just looking into this, and they're not talking about it. They're just trying to put it under the rug. I mean, I know my husband's from Germany, and, I see where Germany's just doing really good things and they're really trying, they came up with something that, where they can tell from your blood if you do have a vaccine injury or not, so yeah. And
so it sounds like the United States is still doing basic observational studies where they're just kind of watching people in similar symptom groups to see what's going on. And other countries are developing diagnostic tools, which would be a step up. Yeah.
Japan and Korea, I've heard some great things, from them. And and Japan, they pay for that procedure where they go back in your nose and scrape it out with that zinc, and to get and they are finding that it really helps. And it's called EAT. The first part of that is epipharynx or something like that, and then abrasive therapy or something like that. EAT. But if you just
after these last EAT, after those last 4 years, and not everyone in your life accepting your injury, what do you have to say to those that doubt your injury, that believe like your friend that it's for the greater good?
That I'm thankful for this movie that's going to come out, and
Follow the Silenced.
Follow the Silence, so that hopefully these people will see it. They're just not wanting to see that there has been an agenda out there. I mean, I never was one who was into politics or into, looking at stuff like that. But now, I watched that Plandemics series because you had Mickey Willis on your program. So I watched all those. And I mean, just seeing all the background and what's leading up to this, and knowing this was biowarfare, knowing this is unfortunately going to happen again. It's just horrible. So people are just they're sticking their head under this in the sand, by not looking into this better, or not listening to people like myself that says, hey, watch
this. What is that saying? If you don't learn from history, it's doomed to repeat itself.
Yeah.
I think that's where we are. And the good news is so many have awakened, including yourself, through this situation that has happened. And there's still time for us to come together and continue to do the work to prevent this from happening again. And in addition to that, I would love to see some real, actual legal accountability and some true money spent on researching ways to recover injured people like you.
Yes.
Let's move beyond the observational studies and move into diagnostic and treatment phase so that we can begin to understand how to recover you. And I think the first step in that is acknowledging that vaccine injuries are real, and that they can look a lot of different ways, and to really begin to have an honest discussion about that very real reality that vaccine injured people exist. They have always existed. And with the COVID vaccine being given in the doses of the billions all at once to adults, you can really see the injuries in a way that in a child, you can't see it. You don't know if a child has a headache. You just hear them cry, right? You don't know if they have photophobia. You just hear them cry, right? And so now we have a whole generation of adults who knew that they were functioning, knew that they had jobs, and now know that their lives are changed. And you're a part of that story, Cherie. And I will continue to work tirelessly to make sure that this never happens again. And that we can find solutions to recover people just like you. And especially you. You deserve to swim and play with the grandbabies in the pool.
Oh, Guy, I know.
Yeah.
All those kids that I'd had for years.
I know, you loved it.
Yeah. In fact, I asked God to stop giving me dreams about teaching swimming.
Oh.
Just too painful. I'd wake up and, and I have. He's helped me. I don't dream about it anymore. So that's one way that, prayer works.
I'm so sorry that you felt the need to have to pray for that.
Yeah. Because it is something I really, really enjoyed, but I still get my hands, into being around little kids every once in a while. So it's good.
What would you say to the people who question vaccine safety in general?
It's not to question, there's no questioning it. You just don't want to go there with your kids. You don't want to have your relatives get these shots. We need to be more wary.
This experience has made you feel like the vaccines weren't worth it for you.
No. And I just wish I would have been listening to my friends, and they've been so helpful to me, and they've been very supportive, and they're That's always saying, have you heard about this supplement? Have you heard about that? Or have you tried this? Have you tried that?
Those are good friends, Cherie.
What's that?
I said those are good friends. When you got your vaccine, either one of them or both of them, whichever one, did they go through a process of informed consent with you? Did they let you know when they give you new medications and the pharmacist talks to you and says, hey, this is what drug interactions look like. This is what side effects looks like. This is when to call your doctor. Did they have that discussion with you before giving you the vaccine, or no?
I think it was written out on a sheet that they handed you. But I do remember it felt like we were being like lambs to the slaughter. There were lines of us, waiting to have our, arm pricked, and, sitting there for 20 minutes after to make sure you weren't, nothing was going to happen to you or whatever. You didn't go into anaphylactic shock or, anything like that. But no, it wasn't really fact, I know there was a doctor there an internist.
So were you at a doctor's office, or were you at, because
No.
here where I am, they had like mobile clinics set up in stadium parking lots.
Yeah, this was out. It's kind of it was a clinic right next to the hospital.
Like a medical clinic.
Yeah. And it was an outdoor area. And they just sit you on a chair after. But like I said, we were all lined up. And there's this one internist that was there, and I knew him. He'd done a colonoscopy on me before. I'd been to his office before. And I reached out to him later on the phone and through his nurses, and he never called me back because I'd seen where they had like a long COVID type of talk. I was gone at that time, so I couldn't get in on it. And so I reached out to him. I wanted him to help me, and he never, ever even returned my phone calls.
I'm so sorry.
Crazy.
That image that you said, lambs to slaughter.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a really perfect image because that was true here too. Like people were they were going to the stadium, like the big high school football stadium, and they were lining up, and the traffic would get so backed up that even on like the frontage roads by the freeway, you couldn't even get through anywhere because that's how many people were going and lining up to get their COVID vaccine.
Oh.
Like drive through a stadium.
Yeah. I guess they may just go on your car off for the side for a little while. Make sure you did.
I don't know. I didn't participate in those.
I know my sisters.
Those
they
events.
Went to a movie theater where there had been a drive-in movie theater, and they went through that. That's how they did that. But I didn't ask her, did they have you sit there for 20 minutes to make sure you
right
or you try to
right and just 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So knowing what we know now, that's come out now about the problem with the shots, how does it make you feel to recall what they said in the beginning, right?
Yeah. Oh, they were all wanting us to go, and it was all this hype, and it's horrible. Yeah,
it's very different. Well, let's hope that we could work together to make sure it never happens again.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing right now, is to make sure it never happens again, and to also do the work and spend the time to figure out how to recover those that have already been injured. And to re-examine the choices that we made as a country, as a world, really, during the pandemic.
I'm so thankful for Texans for Vaccine Choice, because all the podcasts, and I've watched all of them now, and they're helpful.
Oh,
they're
good.
helpful to us. There's Facebook groups out there for us.
Yep, there
are helpful for injured persons, and I'm in the MINDA program or for chronic pain, and I'd never known about it before. So there's some things out there that are helping, but I just wish
everybody trying to solve their own health puzzle.
I just
together.
Wish physician was better educated. Even even my neurologist, when I said to her, well, are you interfacing with the long COVID people or doctors and help us? And it's like, no, her specialty is just neurology and helping you with get rid of the headaches, and she's not really wanting to. So I really need to pursue a different doctor.
Yeah, it sounds as though the neurologist has forgotten that humans are a whole, not just a sum of their parts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all connected. Well, I have loved getting to hear more about your story, and thank you so much for being willing to share with us today. I know that some of that was hard, and I know that your head hurts all the time, and that the brain fog and fatigue are real for you, very severe. And I'm just so thankful for you to take the time to share your very valid story of vaccine injury and to let other people know what that experience can be like. I am Cherie Beuse. You were just watching an episode of Shot Callers, and I'm very much looking forward to the next time that we meet. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Shot Callers podcast. Please, if you found value in this content, rate us, and share the podcast with a friend. It's a great way to get the message out and to empower everyone to make informed decisions. Until next time, never forget, we are the shot callers.